What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and today we have two things to talk about. So last week, today is Monday, so last week was the first state primaries in the US, which is from my state of Texas. So basically we got to pick the Democrat, Republican, and Independents who are going to be running for these different seats come November. And when I posted online that I had voted, a lot of people were confused because I'm in Bangkok right now. How did I vote? And it dawned on me that a lot of people, even expats and digital nomads, have no idea that Americans can vote from abroad. I was in the military for 10.5 years, so I'm well aware of how to vote abroad because I had to do it a lot of times when I was in the service. So what I wanted to do was kind of explain the process of how you register to vote online, trying to find out information about your specific state, mailing things in, work with the embassy, the consulate, and then I also want to talk about how I choose who I'm voting for. I think it's very, very important, especially this year, that people realize that there's an election coming up in like 280 days in November, and it's a it's a general election, the midterm election, which is something that everybody really should pay attention to, because while all the attention goes towards the presidential election, pretty much our country is run by Congress. Our country is run by the governors. Our country is run by the mayors and city council. The things that affect your day-to-day life are decided by the people that we're electing this year, this coming year. So this is a very important election. So I wanted to go over how I choose who I'm going to vote for. For those who are expats, military service, Peace Corps, workaway, digital nomads, there are really two main ways for you to be able to vote from abroad. The first one is get in contact with the U.S. consulate or embassy in wherever you are. There's places in Bangkok, in Budapest, in Rome, in London, these consulates and embassies that will take you through the entire process and basically hold your hand through it. So just make an appointment, go in, and they'll explain the process for that specific location and the state you're from. The second one, which is by far my favorite, the most efficient, is the Federal Voting Assistance Program, FVAP. It's a website specifically dedicated for you guys to go and find out everything you need to know about registering to vote and actually voting, how to get the package sent to you, what address you have to send it to. All that information is specifically on this website, and I'll leave a link down below. So remember again, that website is FVAP.gov.gov. It's an official government website you can use. Alright, so the second thing I want to talk about is how I choose who I'm voting for. One of the most common questions that people ask me, especially Americans, is who did I vote for? Did I vote for Trump? Did I vote for Clinton? Who did I vote for? And I rarely answer this question. You guys have noticed I've never really said anything about my political choices on this channel or in any of my writings. Usually because when people ask the question, they don't really give a fuck like why you voted for whoever you voted for. What they care about is judging you. Like if you say, hey, I voted for Trump, that person automatically judges you a certain way. If you say you voted for Clinton, automatically you get judged a certain way. And I hate playing that game. So what I will talk about is how I view different policies, my point of views on different international relation issues, my difference on each person individually. I can talk about Trump all day, I can talk about Clinton all day, or Gary Johnson, or whoever. And it's one of those... The realization that people are constantly judging you based on your political decisions is kind of partially why I adopted this system about how I decide to choose who I'm voting for. So at the foundation, at the very top of the list that I have is I vote for people who are good people based on what I feel a good person is. I don't believe, I hate when people use this argument about morality. It's like, oh, it's the moral thing. Well, morality is subjective. Like your morals and my morals are going to be entirely different. So if your argument is based on morality, then it's already lost. It's a lost argument already. So when it comes to choosing who you vote for, morality can come into play because it's a personal decision. What I view as a good person, somebody else might not view as a good person. So some of the criteria that I use to choose a good person and a good leader is that they don't want to be a leader. Like, I don't want to vote for somebody who wants to be the governor or who wants to be president. I vote for somebody who does it because they feel it's their obligation as a citizen, that they should be in this position. They're in a great position to help people, to help people move forward in a positive way, to help our state, our country, our city, whatever, the individuals. So that's what I really look for in a candidate. I also look for somebody who can balance the human aspect of issues and the logic of issues. I believe that people fall under one of two sides. Either they look at things from an emotional area or they look at it from a logical area. And I feel that it either goes 70-30 one way or the other. So, like, personally, I'm a 70% logic cat, and I'm only 30% emotional-ish. And I think everybody falls within that spectrum. So when I look at a leader, I look for somebody who can definitely acknowledge the human cost of things and the social structure, but I definitely want somebody who leans on the side of logic, who leans on the side of scientific fact or statistics, things that can be proven and verifiable as opposed to somebody's feelings. So with that said, I usually do this in, basically I break it up into two sections. I have a spreadsheet. I actually write these things down. So I look on the domestic and the international. And on each side, I look at 3 issues only. There's just way too much information out there. There's too many candidates. There's too much bullshit to kind of sift through. And I think people really need to focus on the things that affect them directly and engage those things. And when you break it down to 3 things domestically that I care about and 3 things internationally I care about, it's a lot easier to get that information together and make a choice. So on the domestic side, the very first thing that I look for is somebody who's pro-education. And when I mean pro-education, I mean somebody who understands and engages the fact that the United States has an education problem, not only from the quality of education, but the cost of higher education. It's just a verifiable fact that there's a school to prison pipeline for people of color in the United States. So it's significantly more likely for a person of color to end up in jail as opposed it is into higher education programs. And even when you do make it to those higher education programs, the cost of going to school in the U.S. is fucking insane to me. Like, I have friends with degrees in history who have $70,000 in debt. Like, our education system is antiquated. It's a system that was thought up after the Great Depression, and it hasn't changed. Like, the debt and student loan programs are predatory. And this isn't really an opinion of mine. This is just a system that exists that we all know. And as an international traveler, I see this more so because I see the education systems in places around the world. I've seen it in Japan and Korea and Germany and Sweden and Denmark and Belgium and places in South America like Chile and Argentina. And these kids are destroying our kids from an academic and intellectual standpoint. So the competition that's coming up, those kids who are now, they're 12 years old, who speak 3 languages fluently and who are doing advanced calculus, like, this is the competition in the next 20 years for our kids, for the kids who are coming up who barely pass geometry class. Like, it's insane the competition they're gonna face. Once upon a time, and I grew up in the 80s, so I remember growing up in the 80s and the 90s where, like, computers were a new thing. I remember the first computer, we used to play this game called Math Munchers. And it felt like we were being progressive when it came to education, taking field trips and different programs like that. Now, our kids are barely going to, like, the museums anymore. They barely have enough books. They barely have any laptops, unless you're wealthy, of course. And that's, the income disparity is a big issue. So I want a candidate who will actively address these things. Not somebody who's going to give us lip service and, yeah, we need education reform. No, somebody who's actually going to do some shit. So I really look forward to a candidate that cares about education. So the next domestic issue that I care about is healthcare. So, and I'm going to talk about this from a personal point of view standpoint. In the past 8 years, I've seen more doctors outside more doctors and hospitals outside of the United States than I have inside the United States. I go get a checkup twice a year in the U.S., at least once a year when I can make it back. And the quality of healthcare outside of the United States it's so far. It's so far beyond what we have in the United States from a cost-benefit analysis. Now, of course, I can pay for the very best, but I'm not trying to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars in the U.S. to go just see a doctor to get something checked. And you guys might have, I'll link it, the video that I want to go see Dr. Donna in Bangkok to go take care of my eye and then get a couple other things done. I've never spent more than $70, $80 to see a doctor here, and that's including medication. That's including x-rays and blood tests. Like, it's unheard of for you to, you can barely show up for $100 to go see a doctor in the United States, you know? And that's a problem. Now, with that said, I am not ultra liberal on this subject. I don't believe in the idea that free healthcare is a human right. But I also don't believe people should be dying in the streets because they can't afford health insurance or health care. And I think we have to find a balance somewhere in the middle where we can provide quality health care to people and make it affordable. But I think one of the biggest issues in the United States is that people aren't willing to come out of their pocket, you know, i.e. taxes, to look out for other people because we're an individualistic country. And this is something a lot of Americans won't talk about. It's like we're a country full of a bunch of individuals, 317 million individuals together. And that's why we can't get universal health care, like a pass without it getting repealed and changed and fucked up. I personally don't want to pay for somebody else's poor life choices. But I also understand that as part of a society, as part of a community, that I'm responsible for the well-being of the people around me as well, and they're responsible for the well-being of me as well, even if they don't want to be. That's a social contract. And that's what I do feel that healthcare is. It's a social contract. When you're taking the benefits of being part of a community, the well-being of that community needs to be your concern, and healthcare should be at the very forefront of that social contract. And the very last domestic issue that I take into account when I'm choosing a candidate to vote for or support is immigration. And immigration is a big thing, especially for somebody being from Texas. I have family who's from Mexico. You know, and the more that I travel, the more fluid my view on immigration goes. Let me be clear about something. I do not support illegal immigration. Illegal immigration. As long as we live in a society, a human society, where borders are a thing that exists, then we have to follow the laws of that country. It drives me absolutely crazy when I hear people defending illegal immigration. I understand the human side of it. I understand as an American, I have a very different perspective on immigration than a Syrian fucking escaping a war that we kind of started. But that being said, there's a system in place for people to gain legal citizenship. Is it a good system? No, it's jacked up. But let me be clear about something. The United States probably has one of the most liberal immigration policies in the world. Like I can't just rock up in Japan and be like, yo, give me benefits. I can't do that in Japan. I can't do that in Germany. I can't do that in South Africa. I can't do that in Chile or Argentina. Or like, it's baffling to me. But I also think it's because a lot of people who run their mouths about immigration have never left our country. You can't just show up and receive benefits in a country that you're not a citizen of. There's a process there, and it might not be a great process. It might be a shitty process, but it is what it is. But on the flip side of that is when I see people coming from war-torn nations, especially war-torn nations where the United States fucked up, where we have no business destroying the infrastructure in these places, trying to seek asylum, trying to get away from this conflict of war that we keep perpetuating for whatever reason you want to have. I have empathy. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that I look for with somebody who comes with a candidate who's discussing immigration is a person needs to have empathy. The human aspect that I was talking about earlier. Immigration for me is difficult. I can see both sides, and I think immigration might be one of the areas that I lean more towards the human side of it. In the United States, we have it was something like 11 million illegal immigrants, and actually immigration is the reason I stopped working in politics. Take you back really quick. Before I became a travel journalist, I actually was involved deeply in Texas politics at a very high level. So I was working for I was doing campaign management. I was doing community outreach. I was doing fundraising stuff for Democrats and Republicans, actually. So I was very deeply involved in the political system in the state of Texas, which is a red state. It's conservative as they get. But immigration got me when the DREAM Act, when them motherfuckers couldn't get past the DREAM Act. The DREAM Act is probably the best piece of immigration legislation ever created, and these greedy bastards couldn't get that passed. And I blame Republicans and Democrats for this one. So basically what the DREAM Act is, and I'm going to summarize it, basically kids who are brought to the United States as kids, infants, young kids, who are raised in the United States, who speak English, who are educated in the United States, who have no criminal offenses, get fast track to citizenship. And they voted that shit down. These are the people who you want in the United States. These are highly educated, bilingual people who are highly motivated and intelligent. That's who you want. But I want to tell you why conservatives consistently fight against it. It's because illegal immigrants tend to vote democratically, or they tend to support democratically. And you legalize, I believe it was something like 4 million. I think the number was a little lower. Say you legalize 4 million. Let's say 60% of that 4 million vote liberal. That's ugly. So immigration is a sticky subject, which is why I'm rambling on about it. But yeah, immigration is the very last thing on the domestic issues that I look for. So the first thing up on my international policy perspective for the candidate is war. I was a soldier for 10.5 years, so I had a front row seat to not only the results of war, but a front row seat to humanity. What we truly are capable of as a species. And we are fucking disgusting. We are some of the most vile creatures on the planet Earth when it comes to dealing with each other or interacting with each other. We kill indiscriminately. We use vague and circumstantial information to justify our deeds, and at times we just do shit for fun. But I'm a bit of a pessimist when it comes to humans, because I believe there always will be this bad guy, there always will be an asshole, there's always going to be a need for force. Let me be clear about something. Your rights don't exist without force. Your human rights, they're not a thing. They're something that people created to make you feel better. If there's no police force, if there's no consequence for me punching you in the face, somebody's going to punch you in the fucking face and take whatever you have. That's where force comes in. My views on war and conflict is that violence, force, military action should be used to de-escalate a situation, not to escalate it. So for the first time in this video, I'm going to talk about Donald Trump. So that motherfucker running his mouth talking about, oh yeah, it's going to be the nuclear storm, and yeah, we're going to bomb them back to the Middle Ages. I'm like, yo, that's not how a leader, that's not how a human being uses physical force or violence or power. That's not how you use power. But I still believe that there's a need for the strongest military force on the planet, which we have in the United States. So when I look at a candidate, a governor who's in charge of the reserves and National Guard, when I look at a president or a congressman who have the power to send our troops overseas, I look for somebody who can understand when it is and isn't appropriate to use force and violence, who will stand up and say, we are partially responsible for some of the atrocities that are going on around the world, and we need to address it. So my next point is an easy one, really simple. It's global warming. I would never vote for any candidate who says global warming isn't real, because they're a fucking idiot. They are a fucking idiot. Anybody who does not believe, you know, the thing where there's scientific, verifiable, proven evidence, I can't vote for that person. And maybe it's the 80s baby in me. Maybe because I grew up on Bill Nye the Science Guy and Reading Rainbow and, you know, like Schoolhouse Rock. Maybe I grew up on, you know, these programs that instilled the idea of science and evidence and testing things out. I grew up in that generation where we needed evidence to verify and support what we're saying. And I still live by this today. If you can show me evidence to something, I can have my mind change. And it doesn't even take you to be Neil deGrasse Tyson to realize that global warming is real. I was just in Europe. And anybody who's been following me on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter can see how upset I was traveling through Europe from basically November to end of January, where there was basically no snow. This is Europe. November, December, January, almost no snow, which is insane to me. I grew up in Cleveland, where we had snow by Thanksgiving growing up. Now the seasons have drastically shifted. 35 to 40 days difference than what it used to be, at least when I was started traveling. And this is just in the past 5 years that I've been traveling. Like, I would say 5-6 years ago, I was in Europe, and in November it's snowing everywhere in Europe. Everywhere in Europe. But this year it was only snowing in places like Switzerland, Austria, and Poland, and Stockholm, places further north. So global warming is a very big thing. We have got to cut down our emissions. We've got to take care of the planet. We have to stop putting it off to the next generation, Those of us, I'm 35. Our generation, we're the ones. We're stuck right in the middle of those baby millennials and the baby boomer range, the Generation X baby boomers, where, you know, you got the baby boomers who are unfortunately about to pass, so they're all about to die. And then you have Generation X, who are our leaders now, who are those people in the power to make these changes. You know, we got to lean on them, because we're about to be in that position of authority and power to change the world, and we've got to start with our planet. So the very last thing, and this directly affects me in my day-to-day life, is international relations. I'm looking for a leader who has a clear mindset on international relations and how the United States fits in globally. Not how the United States, but how the United States fits in globally with the rest of the world. I mean, we have the ability to help so many people around the world, and we don't do anything. In geopolitics, it's complicated. It's not as simple as, you know, okay, somebody needs help, we can help them. I understand that. But I would prefer that the United States takes a position, a more philanthropic position, even though the United States donates, the country donates the most money around the world. But I think that when you look at stuff like, you know, people starving in Venezuela, like starving to death in Venezuela. People are dying, starving to death in Venezuela. When you have the Rohingya crisis in Myanmar, when you have the water shortage in Cape Town, these are things that the United States, without a lot of effort, can help with. How much food do you waste? Think about it. How much food do you waste? This week, just think about all the food you scraped in the garbage while people in Venezuela are starving. You know, think about how much water you've wasted when people in Cape Town barely have any water right now. Like, this is right now, today, I'm talking about, you know? It's frustrating. Like, for example, I had a bad issue with Turkey. You guys have probably seen me tweet about this. Where a few days after I had purchased a ticket from Bangkok to Istanbul, Trump and Erdogan got into this spat, this back and forth, and they were like, well, oh, Americans can't come to Turkey, or Turkish can't come to the United States. And I was fucked because I couldn't get a visa. I already purchased my ticket. Thank God for Turkish Airlines, who's a dope airline, by the way. Turkish is amazing airline, who hooked me up with a transfer and didn't even charge me for it. But it's stuff like that that directly impacts those of us who are international travelers, which is where my perspective usually comes from. So international relations, man, we really, really need to switch things up again. Under President Obama, that was a great 8 years of international relations, y'all. Alright guys, I hope this helped you, cleared up a few things about how I choose who I'm going to vote for. Again, this is my personal opinion. This is not me trying to tell you what you should look at. But this is me telling you that when you're looking at choosing a candidate, look at the 3 things domestically and 3 things internationally that matter the most to you and vote that way. Don't vote based on what Fox News or CNN or MSNBC or Al Jazeera or BBC tell you. Vote on what you've seen, what you've researched. Don't focus on Twitter and Facebook. Do your own research. Go and try to find as many unbiased reports as you possibly can. I will leave a few links below to news sources that I trust, that I love, that I use when I'm making these decisions. And get out and vote. Vote local, because the city council is what's going to affect your day-to-day life. The mayor, the governor, your state legislature. Those are the people that are going to be voting on things like taxes and healthcare and legalization of weed and stuff like that are going to affect a lot of people's day-to-day life. And this is the year. Like, if you weren't happy about how the elections went down for the president, now's the time to make something happen. Register your vote right now. Get out there and vote, especially if you know you're going to be abroad. FVAP.gov. FVAP.gov is the website that you need to be using. So, as usual, if you guys have any questions, any comments, and tell me I'm full of shit in the comments below, you know I'll respond. And as usual, leave the world better than you found it. I'll see you guys next time.